The archer is the most basic unit available from the feudal age and produced from the archery range in Age of Empires 4. A standard archer costs 30 food and 50 wood. They deal damage from range and will deal bonus damage to light melee infantry as well as light gunpowder infantry. This spreads their usefulness from the feudal age all the way to the late game. They're weak against armoured units and countered by horsemen. You also don't want to clump up your archers against enemy mangonels or nester bees, because you're going to have a bad time. Early game range damage and defense upgrades have a higher percentage effect on archers. Let's take a look at even armies, one with and one without feudal age blacksmith upgrades. I want to reiterate how important these upgrades can be. When moving forward, please presume all blacksmith and university techs have been researched when viewing the stat cards. Particularly strong updates from the blacksmith in the Imperial Age are silk bowstrings, which provides an increased range to archers of 1.5 tiles, and also incendiary arrows, giving 20% increased damage to all non-gunpowder ranged units, and allowing them to have a siege damage attack. We'll start alphabetically once again, but I've moved a couple of the civs around for reasons we'll get to later. Let's begin with the Abbasid dynasty. They've got a few technologies that help separate their archers from other civs, starting in feudal age with boot camp if you choose to age up with a military wing. This will give the Abbasid archers an extra 15% health, making an otherwise squishy unit somewhat tankier. Composite bows coming online early in Castle Age with 20 to 30 archers ready to go can be a massive power spike, even able to deal with men-at-arms in limited numbers. Hitting Golden Age Tier 3 will give all Abbasid military buildings a 20% boost in production, reducing the time to produce an archer down to just 12 seconds. And finally, into the Imperial Age, we have camel support available, giving +2 melee and +2 range armor when in the range of any camel unit. No one's going to get the hump about that, are they? Onto the ayyubids now, and something that applies to both them and the Abbasid dynasty before them is free siege engineering. This is unlocked for both civs and allows their infantry units to construct siege engines from the very start of the game. These civilizations also share a 20% increased production speed once you hit Golden Age 3. In Castle Age we have Sultan's Mamluks available, a very powerful technology, granting 25% increased damage and 20% movement speed for 10 seconds after killing a unit. Once again we have Atabeg Supervision available from the Trade Wing, granting 20% increased health to any unit produced from a supervised production building. In the Imperial Age, a potent tech that I want to highlight is Infantry Support. While it doesn't buff our archer unit, it will buff any camel that is near an infantry unit, an archer in our case. It will gain a mighty +3 melee and +3 ranged armor. We're going to take a look at the English next, and a unit that almost defines them. It's the first of our unique variations on the archer, with their longbowmen. Costing 10 more food than a default archer, they come with +1 to damage, +2 to range, but have a slight penalty to move speed. The Council Hall in Feudal Age will produce these longbowmen at 100% the usual speed, pumping them out every 6 seconds. They have the Place Palings ability by default, which activates defensive palings. Enemy cavalry will be stunned for 2.5 seconds and receive 25 damage when trying to charge at the longbowmen. Network of Castles is also available to the English and grants a very strong 20% attack speed buff to any units in range of a town centre, keep or tower. This can be used extremely effectively offensively as well as defensively. In the Castle Age, we can unlock Network of Citadels, buffing the already strong 20% attack speed up to 30%. Once we're in the Imperial Age, as well as the mandatory blacksmith upgrades, silk bowstrings and incendiary arrows, the English have access to arrow volley, an ability that grants reduced base attack time by 1 second for 6 seconds. Let's take a look at that in action. Longbowmen are one of the few archer units that regularly get used throughout the match and into the late game, costing no gold but having great range, great damage, and with the other attack speed bonuses from the English, this is easily one of the strongest archer units in Age of Empires 4. Now for the Byzantines. I left these guys for after the English longbowmen, as the Byzantines have access to both the standard archer unit but also the English longbowmen through their mercenary house, and I'm willing to bet you'll see a lot more longbowmen than archers from the Byzantine civ. So you know all about the longbowmen already. What about the Byzantines' default archer units? Honestly, not much to say here, nothing specifically that upgrades that unit, but there are a few techs and upgrades that might be of use. First up, Conscriptio, granting all military buildings within range of a cistern 20, 40, 60, 80 and 100% production speed depending on the water level. If you choose the cistern of the first hill, you'll get access to Pilgrim's Flask, a nice active or automatic ability which heals 25 health per second for 6 seconds. In the Imperial Age, if you have a mercenary house next to a trade post, which lets you train any camel unit, you'll also gain the camel support ability from the Abbasid dynasty, granting +2 melee and +2 ranged armor. A slightly convoluted way of beefing up those longbowmen or archers in the late game. I think you can also actually get the camel rider from your mercenary house by default, right? I think I missed that when I was doing my research. Onto the Chinese now. Supervising an archery range will give you 150% increased production speed, so if you're caught in a pinch and need a lot of archers, this is how you do it. In Age 3, after constructing both landmarks, you'll have reached the Yuan dynasty, granting all military units a 15% move speed boost. This is particularly useful on archers due to their ability to kite melee units in a prolonged fight. The Ming dynasty is available in Imperial Age again. Once you've completed both landmarks, it will grant you 15% increased health to all units. That pretty much covers everything for the Chinese. They do get a fun little bonus after constructing the Great Wall Gatehouse, 25% increased range damage when on stone walls. This is on top of the +1 range all range units get while atop a stone wall. Delhi comes packed with a bunch of bonuses for their archers. First off, we have Frontier Fortifications, which lets any infantry units construct palisade walls, great for walling off sacred sites or letting your villagers continue to gather rather than building walls. Starting off by researching efficient production from a mosque or Dome of the Faith allows the Delhi to garrison a scholar in any military production building to speed up unit train time by 100%. An excellent choice if you're looking to build an army of archers quickly in the feudal age. If you get to the feudal age with the Tower of Victory, your archers will gain 20% attack speed, a very strong early game bonus. A couple of nice upgrades in the castle age. If you age up with the House of Learning, you'll get access to the Pike's technology, granting your archers an extra 0.5 tiles of range. Secondly, you can unlock Forced March from the Blacksmith, an ability that will give your archers a 100% move speed boost for 10 seconds or until they deal damage. Finally, in the Imperial Age, the technology Zeal will grant your archers a 50% attack speed buff for 3 seconds whenever they're healed by a scholar, so be sure to have some mixed into your backline during those late game fights. Oh, French. They really are a cavalry civ. Just like their spearmen in the previous video, their archers don't really have any technologies or buffs that affect them. I guess we could include Keep Influence, which will reduce production cost by 20%, but that's about it. Let's take a look at the French archer model anyway though. My god, look at that fancy hat. Beautiful. The Holy Roman Empire, while being famed for their melee infantry units, get a rather lackluster archer unit. They do have the civ bonus of 10% move speed from the feudal age onwards, which, like we mentioned earlier, can be very useful when kiting opponents. Once you get to Castle Age, Inspired Warriors becomes available from the monastery or the Regnitz Cathedral. This lets prelates inspire military units and improves their armor by 1 and their damage by 15% for 60 seconds. Another excellent unit to mix into your backline. Onto the second of our unique variants of the archer unit, this time from the Japanese. It's the Yumi Ashigaru, a cheaper version of the archer unit costing a total 65 resources, 30 food, 35 wood, 5 less health, 1 less damage, but with slightly faster feet. You'll want these units in high numbers, else you can really feel that lack of damage. Once you've upgraded your town centre to a daimyo manor, you'll be able to train a Yumi bannerman. These will give your archers a very nice 15% attack damage aura buff. And in the Castle Age, you can use the Yorishiro from your floating gate to increase production speed by 150%. That'll have you pumping out Yumi Ashigaru every 6 seconds. As Japanese, you choose the religion you follow, depending on your age up to castle. The floating gate will give you Shinto priests, while the Temple of Equality will give you Buddhist monks. These Buddhist monks grant a 20% damage buff aura when activating a Wololo. And can be upgraded to also grant 25% move speed bonus with the Neihan conversion technology. A niche but interesting way to buff the Japanese army. Similar to the French, Jeanne d'Arc doesn't have too many things that affect her archer units. Consecrate is available, which allows Jeanne to buff a building and grants a 25% food cost reduction to any units produced from that building. This can be upgraded with Ordnance Company in the Castle Age to also reduce wood and gold cost by 25%. Once Jeanne hits level 4, she unlocks a couple of very powerful buffs dependent on which upgrade route you took. As Gunpowder Monarch, ranged Jeanne, she has Valorous Inspiration, an extremely powerful 20-second aura which increases attack speed by 35%. As a Field Commander, Melee Jeanne, she gets access to Strength of Heaven, a mighty single unit buff granting a ton of stats, 300 health, 4 ranged and melee armor, and 300% increased damage. Now that is one powerful archer in the Imperial Age, but that's the thing, just one. Every other archer on the field for Jeanne is painfully standard. The archer for the Malians is the only non-unique military unit that they can produce. Despite this, they still get access to some very cool and very strong unique technologies. Once you're in the Castle Age, you can research poisoned arrows. This will give each individual archer plus 3 damage over 6 seconds. This damage stacks per archer, so if you have 10 archers attacking a single target, you'll get 30 damage over time on that single unit. This means the Malian archers can be very effective even against armoured units, as armour won't reduce this poison damage. A quick note also for the Castle Age, Malian veterancy upgrades cost half as much as usual. Both landmarks that take the Malians into the Imperial Age can have some effect on their archers. The Fort of the Huntress will provide any infantry near the landmark stealth for 30 seconds. The Griot Bara, when celebrating a military festival, will increase all military production by 100%. And we're still going, as once you do hit Imperial, you can unlock Precision Training, a nice +2 damage buff for your archers. And Farimba Leadership in the stables grants your Sofa a 15% movement speed aura within 5 tiles, helping to keep your whole army moving faster and as one unit. Despite not being unique units for the Malians, they get some pretty interesting archers with a lot of positive things going for them. No siege damage though, because they don't have incendiary arrows. Onto the Mongols now, and although they're primarily a cavalry civ, you're likely to see their archers on the field fairly regularly, so keep an eye out for the upcoming techs and buffs. Straight from the Dark Age we have the Khan's maneuver arrow, granting 33% move speed to all units in range. Into the Feudal Age and its further auras courtesy of the Khan, here's 50% attack speed whistling arrow, lasts for 5 seconds, and if you've produced any of one of the newest units in the game, the Khan's Hunter, you can give your archers a scaling attack range buff, starting at half a tile in Feudal Age, 0.8 tiles in Castle, and +1 tile range in Imperial Age. The Yam Network aura is also available if you've constructed the Deer Stones to get you into Feudal Age. In Castle Age, the Khan unlocks his defense arrow, granting +2 melee and ranged armor. Also in Castle Age is the Cruelty, which has a very nice 20% damage buff aura. So stack all these buffs together and the Mongols have a pretty decent looking archer. Onto the Order of the Dragon. It's always fun to discuss this civ and their absolutely beastly units. Their gilded archer comes at double the cost of a standard archer, so 60 food and 100 wood, and takes an additional 20% longer to produce, so 18 seconds. They have a very respectable health pool of 125 in the Feudal Age, half a tile extra range, and +1/+1/+2 damage in Feudal, Castle and Imperial Age. I think the main thing that really sets these Order of the Dragon archers apart though is their increased attack speed. They attack once per second, which can really pile on the damage. Once we reach Castle Age, we have access to the Scale Armor technology, which gives our archers +3 ranged armor. Combine this with the Inspired Warriors tech, which grants +1 melee and range armor, and 15% damage for 60 seconds, and you've got a potent backline threat against any enemy. The Ottomans archer is one of the few rather standard units for this video, not having any specific buffs and rather relying on the civilization's general technologies and enhancements. Starting off then, it's an Ottoman signature unit, the Meta. Oh, before we get into that though, check out the hats on these guys. Very nice. Probably rivaling the French archer at this stage. Maybe I should make a best hats in Age of Empires 4 video. Anyway, the Meta, and more specifically the buffs it can give to your archers. If you acquire the Meta through the Meta Drums Vizier point, you'll get 15% increased move speed. Melee Armor Drums grants +2 melee armor. Ranged Armor Drums grants, you guessed it, +2 ranged armor. And finally Attack Drums, which grant 15% attack speed, which I think is going to be the best option for enhancing your backline archers. The creation speed of archers can also be decreased with a blacksmith or university influence area, and further decreased after construction of the Istanbul Observatory. Another civ that focuses more on cavalry, it's the Rus, so don't expect too much from their archers. The only buff I can find is from Saint's Blessing, granting +2 attack and +1/+1 melee and ranged armor whenever a warrior monk attacks a unit. The attack damage from this buff can be increased to +3 by researching Fervor, which is only available from the Abbey of the Trinity. That's the wrong unit, Zushi. That's a Chugunu. We won't be discussing that unit until the Uniques unit video. Well, that about wraps up every archer in Age of Empires 4. I went with fewer numbers for this video. Hopefully it felt a little more concise, if a little less informative on the specific unit stats side. Let me know what you thought, and once again, anything I've missed or changes will be in a pinned comment below. Thank you so much for watching, subscribe for more, and have a great day.